everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about Some Like It Scot by Pepper Basham. So, this one is a contemporary romance, and it's definitely a rom-com, and romantic comedy is the genre where it fits. It's also Christian fiction as well, and it has a lighter rather than a stronger faith element, and it's a standalone book. So I will start with my usual disclaimer and thank the publisher for giving me an advance reader copy, and all the opinions that I express in this episode are completely my own. So why did I want to read Some Like It Scot? Well, I've loved reading Pepper's books in the past, and especially her books connected to her Skymar story world. And I really enjoyed Authentically Izzy and Positively Penelope and Loyally Luke. And you can find recommendations to those books on my blog at my website at narelleatkins.com. And the link for that is in the show notes. So let's talk about the book. Some Like It Scot by Pepper Basham, as you can guess, is set in Scotland. And this time we're at the Isle of Mull. So we're not in a city, we're in a sleepy village on an island, and it's just a gorgeous setting. So we have many romance and rom-com tropes in this one. We have opposites attract and different worlds. We have found family. We have pretty much all things Scottish. If you love Scotland, this is the book to read. And we also have Edwardian era themes. So there's a bit of a Downton Abbey vibe in this book as well. And as with most rom-coms, we have an accident-prone heroine who can't help but getting herself into tricky situations, which is a lot of fun. So the first line in this one is from the prologue, and this is what it is. I'd love to say I became famous because of my excellent writing skills. So this is in Katie's point of view. So Katie Campbell is our leading lady, and she has a Scottish last name, which actually does matter. It actually matters to some of the villagers in the story, which is kind of fun as well to see. So she's from North Carolina in the States, and she's 28 years old. Now she's known as Misadventure, or Misadventure really does sum up who she is, because she's basically a very good writer, but it's not her writing she's known for. She's known for her hilarious videos that her followers just love as they follow her around the world on her travel adventures. She's a secret children's writer, and she sort of hides that away and hasn't done anything in terms of publishing. And she's a redhead who is very conscious of her height. She's 6'1" and feels like she's quite tall and sturdy, and there's a lot bigger than the average person. And so she would rather be petite, but she has to deal with her height, which she finds to be a disadvantage rather than an advantage for a whole bunch of reasons. So I'm going to share another quote from the prologue that really sums up Katie's character, which is, my grandpa used to say that the only grace I had was the grace of God. And that does really say a lot about her character, because she does get herself into quite clumsy situations and isn't the most graceful person walking the planet. And her Scottish grandfather, who said this, is actually the person who inspired her great interest in all things Scottish. And she grew up hearing a lot about Scotland when she was younger and has always been interested in going to Scotland. So at the start of the story, she's arrived in Scotland, and she's there for 3 weeks to do what's called an Edwardian experience, which I'll mention in a bit more detail soon. Now, trouble seems to follow her, and quite hilarious trouble, may I add. And 5 years ago, her beloved grandparents passed away, and she inherited the family farm in North Carolina. But she's never there because her life is on the road or in a plane. She's jet setting around the world, going to all these different countries on writing assignments and doing her podcasting and videoing, etc. And so she's rarely home. So it's quite interesting. I read that and I had a few thoughts. One is that her siblings are quite amenable if she's inherited the grandparents' family estate, and maybe they inherited money or something else to equal it out. But it's quite unusual in the real world to have a few siblings that wouldn't be jealous of their sister inheriting the family farm. And then the next question I came along to is, why if she's inherited this farm that means so much to her and she adored her grandparents and has such fond memories, why is she traveling the world and not living on the farm? And that is really the big question of the story. What's she running away from? And her mother and some things that happened when she was a child have a lot to do with that, which is all unpacked in the story. So let's talk about our Scottish hero. His name is Graham McKerrow, and he's 32 years old and he's a carpenter and woodworker by trade. Now he's very tall. He's like 6'5" or 6'6" and very broad. And um, if you listen to the title, and which is Some Like It Scot, and thought of the Duran Duran people, well, I thought it was Duran Duran, but it's actually the power station. There's a song, Some Like It Hot. And so that's the song that goes through my head when I first heard about this book. And the Hot Scot is the nickname that she gives to Graham. So he is the salt of the earth, down to earth guy. He has a very close knit family, and his mother is just delightful. You'll fall in love with her as soon as you meet her. She's just really sweet and very authentic in the way she relates to people and very wise. Now, he's also the carer of his adorable nephew, and his twin sister passed away a few years ago from an illness, and he ended up being the carer of his nephew. So he hasn't had an easy time. Now, his family have also bought back the ancestral home that was sold 100 odd years ago. And that would have been when all the laws changed in the UK and it became very expensive to run these big family estates. So the family have got together and pulled their money and bought back bought back the family property, but it's also been extremely expensive to do the renovation. So they've decided to rent it out, and they're renting out their grand home to this very eccentric English couple who decided that they wanted to create a travel destination Edwardian experience. So think cosplay, the whole kit and caboodle. And so when the story opens, we've got Katie landing in Scotland, and she's basically on her way to their estate to do this Edwardian experience. So the operators have got the media and influencers and all these types of people to come along to promote their brand new business venture. So the meet cute with Katie and Graham is laugh out loud hilarious. And they are just, it's just adorable. And you'll have to read it. I'm not going to say anymore because I don't want to give away spoilers, but it was a very unique meet cute. And in the story, as you could imagine, there are a lot of problems. We've got the Scottish versus American thing. We've got her life is on the road and her roots are in America, and he's Scottish and very much invested in his ancestral home and doing the renovations and looking to stay there and to live on the Isle of Mull. We've also got Katie, who needs to learn that she can't outrun her emotional baggage, that just because she's not in the States doesn't mean that the family stuff that she has goes away and disappears. Graham also has his own share of heartache. His ex-fiance left him when his sister was really sick at a time that he really needed her support. So he has some issues to work through with that. And they both have trust issues for different reasons as well. Now, as I mentioned, the faith elements in this book, it's a lighter faith element, but I would call it relevant because where the faith aspects of the story come from the characters and just come up as a natural part of the story. And it's just lovely the way it all fits together, and it fits with them dealing with their emotional baggage from the past. So there were so many things I loved about this book. The charming Scottish village, it was just delightful. Like I just wanted to visit and to meet these people. And there were some really quirky and eccentric characters and some quite crazy things that were going on that added quite a lot of humour to the story as well. And Graham's family was just delightful. They were just that what you would salt of the earth people, what you'd actually love to see in a family. And Katie was really hungry for that type of family environment, but didn't quite realize until she came across their family that that was what she was looking for. And the rom-com drama, it was hilarious, it was ridiculous, it was silly, but it was set up beautifully, and I was laughing out loud with so many things that happened. And the animals, I'm not going to mention anything specific about the animals, other than to say that animals and mayhem definitely went together in this book, and there was some quite hilarious things that happened as a result of animals interacting with particularly Katie. Now, this one is a short time frame novel, so it's the story is pretty much happening over 3 weeks, but it's definitely not insta love because I know a lot of people don't like insta love. And they become friends first, and they really don't seriously think that anything could ever happen because they're from different worlds and have completely different lives. And so they start off becoming friends, and then, of course, the attraction's there and things happen. And I just love the way the romance played out in the story. So, my favorite book quote is sometimes home is a place, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's both. And that really sums up the found family themes in this book. And Katie is really looking for home. She doesn't feel at home in North Carolina. She has family issues that are unresolved and quite a complex relationship with her mother in particular. And she's really looking for somewhere to belong, but it hasn't quite worked out what she needs until she turns up in Scotland and meets Graham. And then Graham, of course, is Scottish through and through. He's wedded to the land. He's now working on the ancestral land of his family. So he has very deep roots in Scotland and is not looking to move. And that was a problem with his previous relationship with his former fiance. So he's got a few issues he's got to work through with that as well. So, in terms of the impact on me, this book was just a pleasure to read. It was just so delightful and it was so funny. And there were laugh out loud moments that they were just crazy and ridiculous, but it was just such a pleasure to read this one. And at the same time, it was a rom-com that had depth, and I really did empathize with the characters and what they were going through, and particularly Katie, who really was struggling with a whole lot of stuff. She would present her public persona, which was light and breezy and fun. But beneath the surface, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. And I loved getting an insight into her life and seeing her and Graham go through some healing during the story as well, which was beautiful to watch. And another thing that I noticed is that there are a couple of times where Katie is what's known as an unreliable narrator. And I did think that I got my math wrong with converting one thing at a particular point in time. And then I've realized that it's not my math, it's Katie's perceptions that are not quite right. And I really loved how that added some authenticity to the story as well. And I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to give away spoilers. So, in summary, I would recommend Some Like It Scott to readers who like rom-coms with depth, readers who are interested in reading anything about Scotland because there's so much Scottish charm and Scottish culture in this book. If you like international romances, particularly vacation romance stories, then you'll love this one. If you like found family themes and in a way that doesn't replace your existing family because it's kind of hard to explain without giving away spoilers, but Katie needed to find Graham's family because the needs that she had, her emotional needs weren't getting met in a way that was helpful from her own family. And I particularly loved how Graham and his nephew and his mother just really embraced Katie into their family and really loved on her and cared for her. It was just really wonderful to read. And I really enjoyed that about the story. And you'll love this one if you've got any interest in the Edwardian era and if you are interested in seeing cosplay and people really immersing themselves in the Edwardian times, then you'll love this one. And the story has relevant faith elements that are organic to the story, and I love that as well. Thanks for joining me today. Does Some Like It Scott sound like a book that you'd like to read? Or have you already read it? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send a text to me via a link in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the episode and leave a comment on the episode as well. And I always go back and check my YouTube comments and reply as soon as I can because I love hearing from you on YouTube. You can also email me via the contact form at my website, which is narelleatkins.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, especially a friend who you think might like Pepper Basham's books and a friend that reads rom-coms and might be looking for something new and fun to read that's set in Scotland. So don't forget to subscribe at your favorite podcasting app or at YouTube so you won't miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.